Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. I am out in the garden this afternoon. I have a cup of tea and I thought I would do just a little walk around the garden, share what it's looking like at the moment, and also talk you through some of my plans for the flower farm over the next few months. It's been a very interesting few days, to say the least. And for the past week or so, I've had so many plans to get some work done in the garden and to film kind of like garden with me's and all of these other videos that I have on my list. And unfortunately, we got hit with another East Coast low, which has it's done some damage in the garden and kind of prevented me from working in it for quite a while. So I thought it would be interesting to share what things look like after, I think we had over 250 mils of rain over 3 days, which is so much rain for like at least 24 hours. It was just constant torrential rain, like bucketing down. We had water coming in through the house, water, just sheets of water throughout the garden, and I did film a little bit of it, so as I walk around I'll share what things looked like when it was pouring rain. But yeah, it's kind of been a little bit stressful and has also prevented me from filming content and making YouTube videos. So I thought today I would just do a walk around, show everything that's wrong and also things that are going well in the garden. But there's a lot of things that have gone wrong with the flower farm, and again, it's just what it is in our life right now, as we transition into a new phase of life and becoming a mum and being pregnant, and all of that has definitely slowed me down quite a lot. And then also having East Coast lows with torrential rain and winds and lightning and thunder, and basically getting hit with everything was also not really on the plan. But if you are new here, my name is Robyn and I live here on the south coast of New South Wales, Australia, with my partner and our 2 cats, and we run a backyard flower farm here. I'm also attempting to grow as much food as I can, both in this cottage garden here behind me and throughout the gardens. I garden using permaculture principles. We have a fully organic garden as well, and I try to stick to mainly no dig is the approach that I use in the garden for building my garden beds. And this is kind of like my second full year of flower farming and running this backyard flower farm. It's definitely changing a lot this year with our baby boy arriving in November, but there are things that I'm working on and crops that I'm getting in the ground. So firstly, I'll turn you around and show you what the seedlings are looking like at the moment, of just some of them that I have that are growing right now. Ignore some of the boxes and old pumpkins that I was cleaning out the garage before, but I do have a whole tray of statice. They're looking really small, but they just need a good feed and a little bit more light, a little bit more sunshine and warmer weather. So I'm sure they'll bounce back. And then I have 2 trays of stock that I am successionally sowing. So this is the first succession. I like to grow column stock. I've had really good success with this in the past, and I'm really excited to get these in the ground. And I also have a tray of brassicas here that I'll be planting throughout the garden. So there's lots of broccoli, cabbage, kohlrabi, all the good stuff in that. And I have a few trays of onions as well that are almost ready to plant. So we're going okay for the seedling front for, how I've been feeling and just like getting back into gardening and sowing all of the seeds. This is currently the cottage garden at the moment, and it's not really where I want it to be. It's this week I'm going to be tackling it again, but there's things that I am really enjoying in here. I really love how all the jonquils have come up around the corner. I've kind of really shaped that, and I've extended those down the pathway as well, so we're getting some of those flowering. But I'll overlay some shots of what this looked like during the rain. There was so much water moving through here, and I was a bit worried that it would just sit, but today is the day after like the low has passed, so things are looking okay, and I think things will dry out. We're on a slope as well, so the whole property slopes down towards the back, so none of the water is ever like standing here. The only thing we do have is very clay soils, and that is a problem for some of the plants, particularly ones that like free draining soil, like a lot of flowers do and a lot of veggies. I need to be making sure that I have enough organic matter in here so that that clay can be broken up. But some of the jobs that I'll talk you through that I'm going to be working on this week, I'm going to be pruning back this David Austin rose. I've already pruned and treated some of my other ones. I'm going to actually be taking out all of these strawberries here and propagating them and planting them in pots so that I don't have strawberries just everywhere in the garden. And I'm also going to be just laying down some more cardboard, like you can see I have over there, just over the beds that I'm going to be planting veggies in. So I'm kind of choosing like square meter or like 1.5 meters by 1 meter plots to do veggies. I think that's going to be really manageable for me. And then I just need to come through and mulch all of this garden bed. It looks quite weedy, but actually it's a lot of borage that's coming up, which is really easy to pull. And yeah, I did have quite a lot of mulch and soil on this bed. Some of it's been washed away, but the soil is actually really, really great. So I think I'm going to be planting all brassicas all throughout here, with maybe a row of onions as well, because brassicas like quite a bit of nitrogen and there's a lot of manure in the soil, which is going to be good. And then over this side, I just have lots of weeding to do. Same thing, I've got cardboard to lay down. The anemones are looking really great in the planter boxes that I planted up. And I have so many daffodils that are coming up here that have multiplied. I planted like 4 bulbs in there and they've all kind of multiplied over the years. So that's really nice to see. We've also been harvesting so much parsley, which has been so fantastic because we make a lot of soups over winter and add that in. And we also have some beautiful mizuna, which has self-seeded, and this is great to add to salads and stir fries or curries or anything that you just want a little bit of extra nutrients. And I am trying to eat a lot more colourful vegetables right now that I can kind of tolerate eating vegetables again. There was a moment there where I didn't think I could do it, but my nausea has definitely subsided a bit. And yeah, I'm trying to eat a lot of dark purple vegetables and orange vegetables as well. So mizuna is something I will be harvesting this week. And then, so that was that bed over there. Swinging back over here, got quite a lot of herbs that we've also been picking, and I just have to do a lot of weeding throughout here. I had sown some beetroot over there, and I think it's all been washed away, so that's great. But it's fine. I have so many like seedlings to plant, and also seeds that have just like self-sown, germinated throughout here, like lots of parsley I can see around there. So yeah, there's lots to plant around here. So now we're going to walk down that way and I'll show you what is happening down in the flower farm and what it looked like a few days ago with all of the rain that we had. So I was absolutely, utterly amazed at how much water we had coming down the property, and standing behind me, we had sheets of water, and that's kind of what I could see from the kitchen window. And I was just like, getting a little bit nervous. So I decided to come for a walk in the rain just to see what was actually going on down here when we had all of that. And yeah, it was amazing. There was just so much water. So this is what things are looking like now. No standing water, which is great, but I will overlay a clip here of what this looked like a few days ago. So I was pretty worried that some of these garden beds had actually washed away, but they seem to be kind of a little bit intact still, which is good. This one in particular, I think because I had the wooden stakes here. Everything's looking really great, and this is where all of my, well, not all of them, about half or so of the anemones are planted. They have grown so much since I've planted them. It's a little hard to see because I have the mesh on for the bandicoots, but you can see in there they're looking really, really healthy. And this is an example of a bed, actually both of these beds. This is where I had the dahlias planted before, and the soil in here, I'm not worried about it at all having a lot of water because it has so much organic matter. I have added so much homemade compost and the sugarcane mulch. It works absolute wonders. And this is what's working for me right now, is just a lot of organic matter. Homemade compost particularly is what's working fantastic, as it just helps to break everything down. Now, unfortunately, we're actually going to be moving next year, but if I was to stay here, I would do this to all of my beds and just be making so much more homemade compost to add to the soil, because it's just worked so well for this bed. I think I do actually have some footage of when I planted the anemones here, and the soil was just so fluffy. I didn't even need to be, breaking it up or using a shovel or anything. Weeding was divine. It was so easy to weed this bed. And yeah, it was just absolutely amazing to be able to plant into soil this good. Definitely don't underestimate homemade compost or worm castings. I've also added a lot of that into this soil because it has just worked absolute wonders. I think also just having plants in the ground as well, like we had dahlias in here, they also help to break up the soil. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with these. And I have anemones in this one, and I'm probably going to be planting a whole bed of brassicas here. It's a little bit shady, gets afternoon shade from all of these beautiful trees, and I think that'll be great as we come into the warmer months because they're still very small at the moment, but they'll be fine throughout winter, and then we'll get kind of maybe like a late winter, spring harvest of broccoli and cabbages. And having this shade will be really great to prevent them from bolting. So I'll have a whole bed there and then a little bit extra over here that I can plant into, and probably plant brassicas here. So this week I don't really have too much to work on in this area. It's all pretty much set, it's all prepped, all the soil. I might rake up just where the soil has been washed away a little bit to fix up the shape of the beds, but in terms of job wise, I'm not really going to be doing anything here this week, which is fantastic, and I'm thanking past me because of that, because the beds here have been amended, are fantastic, the soil's great, and is definitely ready to plant into probably in the next month or so when all the seedlings are ready. One thing though that I do want to make sure is that I just keep the soil covered here. So I might add a little bit more sugarcane mulch or some mulch. There's heaps of leaves down the back from one of the pear trees. So I might rake those up and pop them over here, because if you have good soil, make sure you cover it. Oh my God, don't mind Scott in the background. Say hi. He's just emptying the kitty litter. As I was saying, if you have good soil, make sure you cover it, keep it nice and covered and protected. And I'll show you why that's important down at the next section of the flower farm. All right, so this was also really interesting. Throughout the rain event that we had, I'll put another overlay of what this looked like. So as you can see, we basically had a sheet of water going down, mini rapids coming around here, wrapping around, and it just goes to show how important plants are, I think. Along here we have a lot of natives planted. We have some like sedge grasses and lots of different things. And the water wasn't flowing as fast through there as it was here. It was just running down here. There was nothing to stop it. If we had this garden bed maybe like coming out a little bit, that I think would also help to stop the water. But like I've said before, we're moving next year, so I'm not going to be putting too much effort into planting a lot more trees. But it is a really good illustration of why plants and getting plants in the ground is so important for managing water flow. In here, I have specifically planted things that really like water, and ignore all of the weeds and cardboard and everything in here. This is just kind of like our version of no dig, and we just pile on a lot of materials here. Like as you can see here, there's a future garden bed being made there. Very, very passive. But yeah, we have things like this, which is a mat rush, Phacenia nodosa, and fantastic if you've got clay soils, highly recommend. We've also got a Banksia in here. Doesn't love clay soils, but it's doing pretty well at the moment, and it is native to this area. Some more Phacenia, which I can see is actually branching out, so I might actually try and propagate that. Lots of no-dig cardboard materials going on here. Another one that has loved life. Actually, we have a self-seeded fig here that a bird must have just dropped a seed. And I just picked our first fig of this before it fell to the ground as I was testing to see if it was ripe enough, and it was pretty soft. And so taken that inside. But yeah, we have a fig here. And also so many leptospermums. These have been my savior for clay soils. Absolutely love them. This one here is a lemon tea tree, probably one of my favorites to use in arrangements because it has the most divine smell. I absolutely love it. Would really recommend planting these if you are starting out your flower farm and these can grow in your area. You want to make sure though that you keep hedging it. So I've kept topping it back, and it really responds well to that. And then when you do that, you get really nice, beautiful stems that can be used in arrangements. And you really only need like 3 of these in an arrangement popping out to make things look beautiful. I do have a few more coastal leptospermums on the other side of that. And then some more down here, which have just responded so well to our soils. I love this burgundy one as well, would highly recommend this. As well as this one here, which I think this is this is Cardwell. I always get that mixed up. And this has a beautiful flush of white flowers that just kind of looks like snow, covered in snow. So yeah, those are our natives down there. And then I'll turn you around here, and this is what the flower farm is looking like. I have actually spent quite a bit of time down here over the last few weeks tidying things up, pulling out plants. What I have been doing is not fully pulling them out. I've just been cutting them at the base to make sure that I keep the roots in the ground to hold the soil as much as I can. The plan here though, I have big plans for this area, so let's start up the top and I'll give you an update on the ranunculus. This is my about 8 meter bed of ranunculus. There's lots in here and they are looking amazing. We've got a little hole here, so we'll pop you in so you can see how well they are looking. And again, like the other beds, I had amended this with quite a lot of horse manure, homemade compost, and I think that's why they're also doing really well, just because they have high nutrients, and also the water isn't just pooling in these beds because they're a little bit raised up as well. So they are looking great. I have a lot of areas tarped that I'll be lifting up. This week I will be lifting up this bed here to plant something in here. I think probably the status may go in here or some veggies, but I'll take you down to the other side here and show you what I have planted in here and what this also looked like the other day. So this is where I've been kind of making some mistakes in the garden. And my mistake is that my pathways, there's a pathway here and a pathway here, they're a little bit higher up than the actual bed, which is not what I want. And I wouldn't recommend doing this. The reason that they are is because basically I've been piling up wood chip on the pathways and not building enough organic matter on the actual garden beds themselves. And as a result, I'll insert a clip here of what this looked like the other day. You can see that there's just so much water in here, and there's not that much water on either side. There's just quite a lot of water pooling on the garden bed, which is not what I want. So I am always learning, as I think we should all as gardeners. And next year, when we start growing again, or whenever we start growing again, I'm really going to be focused on raising up garden beds, building up organic matter, rather than focusing on just weeding pathways and making sure my pathways are clean. I need to be making sure that my beds are actually higher up, because it just helps so much with drainage, so much with nutrients, and I really just have not been prioritizing building my soil. I have been amending it, yes, by adding things like worm castings, blood and bone, lime, to kind of get those nutrients that we're lacking and to bring our pH up a little bit. However, I have been lacking on building soil with actually bringing in materials. That's kind of why in this garden bed, so I have some statice planted here, and then I have another garden bed throughout here. That's why here I have been starting my green manure. Again, you can see it's lower down than the pathway. The pathway is half washed away anyway, so there's that to deal with. I'll have to rake that out this week. But I have been sowing green manure in here. I sowed that in one of my other videos, and that is a lot of pea snaps. So we've got some snow peas that I had a big bag of them that I wasn't going to use, so planted those in there, and I will let those grow along with some buckwheat that I also sowed in here. And then I will just cover that once they are at the correct height and the correct growth to cover it and just build some soil in here. I need to build this up, and organic matter is the best way to do that. When I started this flower farm area, one of the reasons why the soil is how it is because I was actually pulling out a lot of the plants that I had planted after the crops were finished, rather than just cutting them off at the base and letting them kind of rot in the ground, letting the roots break down. It's definitely a mistake I made, because when I pulled them out, you're also pulling out like all of that soil that's attached. So if you're rotating your crops like I was, which was pretty heavily and pretty intensely, you're just losing soil when you're pulling up those plants. So it's definitely a lesson that I've learned, and I'm so glad that I have now before we eventually start again and also continuing this flower farm, because it hasn't really worked that well for me doing that. And is another reason why I just love the no dig principle, and also just the idea of it, that you're not kind of consistently digging up the soil and disturbing all of that work that is going on in that ecosystem. Just snipping off the plants at the base works so much better. So that's what I'm going to do from now on, and I've learnt my lesson. We're just going to do that from now on. It looks quite messy, but the plan moving forward, I just need to have a few more plants I need to clear out here, and I am pretty much going to be tarping most of all of this area, or laying cardboard over it, and not actually planting it over this season, the cooler season. I'll probably stop around here and just have all of this planted. So 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. And then this section here, I'm going to be keeping this for summer. In summer, obviously with the pregnancy, I'm going to be a lot larger and a lot slower, and I'm not going to be planting too much or doing too much physical labour in the garden. So my plan for most of this is actually just to fill it all with sunflowers. And rather than doing smaller beds in here, I'm going to be doing larger beds, like maybe 2 meters by, this is 8 meters here, and breaking that up as I go to just successionally sow sunflowers. And that way what I can do is just have the whole area prepped by tarping them and then adding mulch in summer. And then I can just direct sow my sunflowers. I will probably need to lay a net over, like the net that we have up there, just because we have a lot of birds and bandicoots that are going to dig that up. But that's going to be the plan for this area. So it's going to look very different in summer, and it is what it is right now, but we're just going to leave this how it is and let break down. I had all of my dahlias planted in here, and unfortunately I couldn't save any of those either. It's a very sad thing, but I'm probably not going to be focusing on dahlias too much this year or coming into summer, just because they're quite intensive, and I'll just be planting some for me, I think. The crops that I will definitely be focusing on, like I've said, are sunflowers and zinnias and straw flowers. Those are the 3 that I'm going to be focusing on, as well as statice. Those are the 4 that I'm going to be focusing on. And those ones are just, I know how to grow them really well here, and I know they grow well here, and they're also really profitable for me and my market where I am. My approach to the flower farm over the next few months and while we still live here is actually to just do what I should have done in my first year of flower farming, which is really stick to the basics. And those are those 4 things throughout the warmer season that I know how to grow and that I can make some money off. If things were different this year and I knew we were staying here long term, I would branch out and probably plant a lot more different things to create a lot more intricate and unique bouquets. But I'm really bringing it back to the basics this year and planting what I know works well for me. And it's kind of a year of what I really should have done at the start. And, you know, there's so many lessons you can learn, and you can listen to so many people talk about their lessons. And I've done videos on the lessons that I've learned in flower farming. But ultimately, I am not an expert, and to be honest, there is actually no such thing as a garden expert. That is the beauty of this world that we live in. There is so much diversity in terms of climates and soil and animals and bugs. It's impossible to get a garden expert for every single climate region that we live in. So while I think, listening to all of those lessons, videos and things like that on YouTube is great, and that's why I'd recommend watching quite a few different ones over different climates and different people, different regions. Ultimately, you are going to be the only expert and the one and only place of information that you really should be 100% listening to all the time, because you would have gone through all of the lessons that you need to know for your specific garden. And then it's really up to you to change and adapt to see what actually works for you the best. You know, it doesn't really make sense to be keeping on doing the same thing if it's not working for you. And I need to be doing that this year and not worry too much about experimenting and just grow what works well for me. We're now at the base of the flower farm, and this is the leftover zinnias that Scott and I started pulling out before this large rain event. And these beds are actually really great in terms of soil. The soil's really nice in these, so I might actually be using some of these as veggie crops to plant some veggies down here, or I'll do sunflowers. The zinnias worked really well down here, but I think I do want them just a little bit higher up in the garden, probably just up in these beds. And that's because the ones that I had further up had powdery mildew slower than all of these ones. And that's just because we have all of these beautiful trees around. The sun sets over there in the west, and it gets less sunlight here. So these go over sooner. And I think sunflowers will also do really well down here. I never have to water this patch as well because all of our water drains underground down around here. It's great because I don't have any irrigation in the whole flower farm basically, because that's just how much water and rain we get here. The problem isn't rain, the problem is dealing with the water. But yeah, I think sunflowers will be great down here. They're a nice hungry crop. And behind those I have some feverfew. It's really weedy, and I keep showing this in every video, like, oh, I'm going to be cleaning this. This is this week's job and whatever. Yeah, I haven't got around to it yet. But there are 2 beds of feverfew in here that I will probably be either ripping up, taking up, or weeding them. I might weed this patch at the back here because that didn't flower as heavily as the other ones. I'm going to be propagating quite a bit of feverfew and also growing some of that in the next few weeks. This is the last section of the garden, and I don't really have any flowers down here. I just have some native plants. We've just been trying to build up a bit of habitat back here. We've got some beautiful bleeding heart trees that are looking so nice, and we have an ornamental pear down here. But this is where our compost bays are, and they've been doing really well. This was, I don't know, about 5 days ago, a lot higher than it is right now, and it is slowly breaking down, and this is going to be a really cold compost slow process, which is perfect for me. Works perfect just to have somewhere to dump things. I don't know if I'll get around to actually using a lot of this compost because it will take a long time to break down, but that's the intention of just having a really passive system of making compost, as well as our 2 other ways we make compost in our compost bins, and also we have some worm farms, so that's where I get the bulk of my compost from. I just needed somewhere to put all of the flower farm leftovers in here, so that's the main purpose of these bays, and they've been working really well. We just had an old bit of fence that we've put up the front here and used a stick to makeshift keep that in, but we'll probably zip tie that in and just keep adding to that over the next few months. And then yeah, this is the last area that I'll also overlay what this looked like a few days ago. So as you saw, so much water, and it's really sludgy still at the moment, but it's all gone, the water. There's no standing water, which is fantastic. A lot of these beautiful trees would have soaked up a lot and helped with drainage. And yeah, I'm not worried about this area because we don't really come down here too much. It's the last zone, I suppose, in our permaculture zone where we just have native trees back here. So that is a little bit of a afternoon walk around with me of having a look at what the garden looks like after 250 plus mils of rain. I also want to say this wasn't the first East Coast low we've had. This is about the 3rd in 1 to 2 months. We have had so much rain, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mils of rain over the last 2 months, and it has made gardening, filming, creating content, planning the garden just so difficult. So thank you for sticking with me with some of the content changes that I've been making. My ultimate favorite videos to film are the garden vlogs, where I am busy working away in the garden, but sometimes that just can't happen at the moment. It just hasn't been able to work with the weather. So thank you for sticking with me, and thank you for continuing to watch my videos. Like always, if you would like to see more content, you can head over to my Patreon, where I share extra content. There's all of the pregnancy related content over there, and it's also just a way to financially support both Scott and I to continue to make these videos here for YouTube. But also liking and subscribing does help me out so much, and is completely free for you. I also just want to say a massive thank you for those who have sent me some beautiful, kind messages about this pregnancy and just wishing us well. That means so much to both Scott and I, and it was so lovely to read all of those beautiful comments. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that it gave you kind of a bit of an insight into how the garden can really bounce back after such a massive rain event. I am so glad that the garden is looking like how it is, even though it is an incredible mess and there's so many weeds, which have also just like tripled in the last few days in terms of size. But gardening how I have set up this flower farm, particularly gardening on a contour as well, by going against the grain of where the water is flowing, I think really did help me out. I've learned a lot during this rain event that I'll be applying in future gardens and continuing this garden here. It's been a real big learning curve for me. I hope that you have been staying safe if you're dealing with heavy rain at the moment. And yeah, there has been a lot of flooding that has gone on around us, and yeah, it's been pretty bad in some areas with some of the roads washed away, and it's going to take a long time to clean up some of what has happened in the Shoalhaven area and also Illawarra. This rain has caused a lot of issues, so yeah, I'm also making sure to just continue to be supporting the local businesses around that I know have suffered throughout this. So that's just something I'm going to be very mindful of. But thanks so much for coming along for a walk in the garden. I had a little chatty garden vlog. I promise I'll be back to making the garden with me videos this week. I'll start a weekly vlog and hopefully get that up next weekend or the weekend after. Thanks so much for being here again. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world. And until my next one, happy gardening, everyone. Bye.